This afternoon. I'm looking forward to diving in. Obviously, I know most of the people that are going to be listening to us are probably going to be lifters, interested in strength training, stuff like that. I know, obviously, yourself, you're a physiotherapist, you're a lifter, you're a father, and we've been talking a little bit in the background about why you feel why strength is so important and it has been a big part of your journey. And you've obviously overcome some massive health challenges as well that we'll dive into later as we chat. But for now, maybe just tell people maybe your background in strength and health and just that context of your life.
Totally. Pat, thanks for having me on, man. It's good to talk because I know our worlds have intersected for a little bit in the powerlifting sphere, and it's just you've been somebody whose name has come up over and over again. And like you said, for our conversations, I've been stoked for this one. So, yeah, man, for me, my story goes all the way back to growing up as a fat kid, quite honestly, where I grew up and just was chunky, got made fun of at school by the other kids in class for being fat. And then it was just I hated the experience of being picked last consistently at gym class, at recess, for whatever the sport was that we were doing, and that led to me during the summertime, like I just hid, like even a beautiful day like we've got today, where other kids would be out riding their bikes, playing whatever sports with the kids in their neighborhood, doing whatever. I was in the basement watching TV, and just wanting to avoid that rejection. That's really what it came down to. And my parents saw what was going on and they wanted to try to fix that or help as much as they could, rather. So they tried to get me into whatever sports I would take to. And we tried a bunch. We tried tennis, we tried t-ball, we tried basketball. I played basketball for a season. I wasn't good at it. I didn't really enjoy it. Like shooting hoops, in the driveway or the court, but I wasn't great on the team at the time. Um, and then nothing really took until we found kung fu. And maybe it was the fact that I got to hit people and didn't get in trouble. Maybe because I grew up watching Power Rangers and stuff like that. But that was the first thing that I really took to, and it they weren't subtle about it in the sense that the studio made us recite this creed every before every class of, I'm going to learn about integrity and discipline and community and commitment. Like they said these things, but how old was I at the time? I was like 8 or 9. So like you hear those things, you say those words, they don't really have much meaning for you at the time. But as I kept going and being part of these classes, I started to feel more confident as I started to learn how to punch and kick and block and started to feel like I could handle myself more, if push came to shove, which inherently built up that confidence. I think it probably does for almost anybody. But the process of going through that, showing up to classes, giving my best, not performing at the highest level, getting coached, working with other kids who were doing the same thing, working towards similar goals, that taught me those characteristics of discipline and integrity and teamwork and that sort of thing. Which, looking back on it, it takes hindsight, I think. But looking back on it, it really started to lay the foundation for what was going to be important through my educational career or educational track, it, friendships, relationships, family, and it that was a pivotal turning point for me. So, you know, Pat, we'll get into what comes after that, but I'm curious to know on your side, how did fitness or strength come into play for you? Was there a turning point, or were you just always kind of in it for yourself?
Yeah, funny, like relatable trajectory anyway. Um, I was the first kind of seed that was planted was my dad who would used we used to watch like Bruce Lee movies with my dad, and also it's like Sylvester Stallone and all the like 90s action movies, but like Bruce Lee was the man, and that was like the first, like I just knew, like I truly stand by this statement. Like even when I was like 5 years old, when I was like I just knew, like when I'm a man, I'm gonna be jacked. Like, like I'm gonna have those muscles. Like that was my future. Like I didn't really know how to do that, so I started doing taekwondo and just like push-ups in my room and stuff like that, like literally just as a boy, like. And I think, yeah, I stopped taekwondo for a while. I was just like a freaking normal kid playing soccer, all that kind of stuff. And then when I was about 14, I went back to taekwondo and I started doing boxing. And I always remember as well, I always remember I was doing like some laps, or we were running like laps around the boxing ring, just training, and I remember like catching a glimpse of myself in the mirror as I was going around and like seeing my little biceps and stuff when I was 14, and I was just like, I just knew I got much more of a buzz like out of that than what I was doing, what I was training at. And honestly, like I always remember that little just glimpse and just kind of realizing what I was doing, where I was training. I was like, you know what, I just want to lift more and do more. During that same period, my dad gave me like literally just screamed up the stairs like, "Pat, do you want these old dumbbells?" And I actually genuinely didn't even know what dumbbells were. And I was like, "What?" And he's like, I went to the top stairs like, "What?" And he's like, "Do you want these old dumbbells?" And they were literally like totally rusted, like literally rusted. I had to like sandpaper off the rough rust off them and stuff like that. I just started lifting in my room, and
More anabolic, I hear.
with within it, what did you say?
Makes them more anabolic, I hear, if they're rusted.
That's right. And like I'd say within about no more than 18 months after that, I'd competed in my first bodybuilding competition at 16. And I was just like, I was just all in on it from 16 to, it's hard to really say when I stopped, but I did my last official competition when I was 28. So or 29 actually when I competed. But yeah, that's kind of my similar trajectory. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. Bodybuilding factors in for me too. Or it never got to the competitive stage, but after getting into Kung Fu, we took a break, or I took a break from Kung Fu because my family went on a trip to see my dad's side of the family in Trinidad and Tobago. Excuse me. And then we came back, really anticlimactic, but I just never went back to the Kung Fu studio. But that was around the time that we watched the movie Remember the Titans, and love that movie. Still one of my favorites. But my dad was the only one who had played football and understood the rules of the game. So we were sitting there and had to pause the game sequences about every 12 seconds to ask my dad, wait a second, is that good? Are we happy? What does that mean? And he would explain the whole thing. And after watching that movie one time, I was hooked. I'm like, I want to go do that. So God bless my dad. He went, found a summer camp for me to sign up at, went through the summer camp, had a blast. Didn't go out for the school team the first year of high school because I think this would have happened in my grade 9 year. But I did go out the following season, played for 3 seasons, and that's when I started to train for football. It was in my second season, so grade 11 or so. Because the coaches, I think they had a really cool rule. At the end of grade 11, they took us all out to do fitness testing. Not a super formal, but like push ups, dips. I think we ran 100-meter dashes, other stuff like that. And their rule was if you came back for summer training camp 2 weeks before classes began and you were better, you got to play. They didn't care about how much, you just had to be better to show that you were training. I'm like, all right, cool. Also, growing up, my parents, they would go and train, especially on Saturday mornings. They might do some stuff through the week, but Saturday mornings, that was when mom and dad went down to the basement. They pumped up Mariah Carey. Guess whose favorite songs those were? Not my mom's. It was my dad. My dad was the one who bumped Mariah Carey, and I can't fault him for it. Pretty awesome. But they had equipment down there. So I made my introduction with an old bodybuilding book that I got from my dad. It was Body for Life by Bill Phillips, and started to use their dumbbells and their weight machines and stuff, and had a little tiny idea of what I was doing, but not much. Um, and that's where I was surprised by it was my moment of we didn't have a mirror down there, but I started to notice I could move more weight, but I also caught glimpses of myself in the bathroom as I was showering or whatever. I'm like, oh, I'm looking a little better. And that became addicting for me because again, growing up as the fat kid with no confidence, here is this place where I didn't have to worry about anybody else. I just had to come in. I clearly knew what had to be done and I got to do it and it lived and died with me. And if I put in the work, I was going to get better. And that felt really addicting. And I saw that start to translate and bleed over to other areas of my life. So went through, or with that all through football. When football finished in senior year, I needed something else to do for 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. So I kept training in the gym. And then come undergrad for my university degree, um, I just kept training. If I commuted to and from living at home to McMaster, where I did my undergrad. So if I wasn't on the go bus to or from, and I wasn't in class, I was probably in the gym or in transit between one of those locations. And this is finishing up my degree around 2012, which is when natural bodybuilding had a humongous heyday. So I was like, that's what I want to do. And was just taking in all the information I could from people like Eric Helms and Alberto Nunez and all the people that if people were in the fitness sphere or on YouTube 2012, 2013, you know who I'm talking about. And decided I wanted to try to make a push for competing. I never ended up on stage for the confluence of a couple of reasons. This was getting into the point where I got into physio school. So it was that big transition. I also had a lot of anxiety and like just a mental health state that really needed to be addressed. And that coupled with physio school, coupled with the necessary focus on nutrition to get leaner and leaner. I got sub 10%, nowhere near stage ready, but still, all of this led to this really unproductive and at a point a destructive cycle for me, where never had a diagnosed eating disorder, but I certainly was in a binging cycle, and it was tough. You know, all the love and respect for bodybuilding and physique sports. For me, at that point, it wasn't the right fit, and it it took a few weeks, maybe up to a month, as I was still going to the gym, but really feeling lost because this thing that I had focused on for so long now just wasn't the thing. And that's where powerlifting ended up being the rebound girlfriend. And we're still going strong all these years later. So,
Nice, nice.
yeah, man.
Ah, cool.
It seems like the bodybuilding world ends up being a bit of a pipeline into powerlifting for a lot of folks. Like, and imagining at some point that was the case for you too. Yeah.
100%, yeah, 100%. I think everybody starts out with some kind of Arnold Schwarzenegger story. I guess these days it's probably what's Chris Bumstead or something. Everybody has their heroes or whatever that makes them start like, I want to get jacked. But yeah, similar. So I started bodybuilding. As I said, first competition was 16, and I was just pretty much all in at that point. And I competed for maybe um, I believe I was around 22, 23. I started to get just a little bit disillusioned. And yeah, that would have been actually 2012 as well. The whole industry kind of blew up and things changed. When I first competed, like it was like people used to for literally like make fun of me in school. Like I was like, I want to say bullied, like kind of like, yeah, basically bullied in school for like, yeah, bodybuilding and all that, which just was not cool. Whereas like it was kind of like a freak show. And I kind of enjoyed that aspect of it. Anyway, things blew up, things changed in like 2012, 23. Um, I just got a little bit disillusioned with the whole kind of industry and like how like supplements and all that kind of stuff were like a really big, like a really big integral part of like you got to take a picture of what protein powder you're using and go to the gym and all that. It was a weird time on social media. I feel with all. I just kind of got a bit of disillusioned with it, stopped it, and same thing. I just transitioned into powerlifting. Sorry, I found powerlifting for me was like a really, it was really refreshing in terms of like nobody really just it's hard to describe the energy, say, for example, backstage at a bodybuilding competition versus backstage at like a powerlifting competition. Like, it's just like a lot more supportive and laid back and kind of real and less, generally just less like, I don't know, but like, I fucking love bodybuilding. It's in my heart. Like, I'm currently coaching a couple of guys for the stage. I fucking love it. Never talk bad about it. But the energy that it can come with is very like, sort of false, like like the whole like standing, yeah, like looking at other guys and like just being like more tense and like very self-critical and self-analyzing, but kind of projecting this like really all this sort of stuff. Whereas I just found like powerlifting very kind of human and like nobody really cares what you look like or and else. It's just like how much can you lift, and also everybody's just supporting you in there to help. So that was like really really refreshing. And then I just got yeah, I kind of go through cycles of like down rabbit holes. So I just like started going to seminars, learned from Brandon Lilly, Chad Wesley Smith, Sebastian Arab, Ed Cohen. I don't want to start like name dropping so many people, but like I just like got all in like, okay, how can I be the best powerlifter and like learn as much as I could? And I started coaching powerlifters then because I was going through school at the time as well to do strength and conditioning, a degree in strength and conditioning back in Ireland. So it all kind of tied in together as well. That was kind of the area that I focused on most. What about yourself, Jared? How did you get into physiotherapy and yeah, just tell us a bit about that and what made you want to be a physiotherapist.
I totally will. I'll circle back there real quick. One of my good friends, his name's Nick. He's also a competitive bodybuilder, and he said the same thing that you did as far as the energy at a bodybuilding show. And he and I, we met at the gym that I trained at in the first city that I lived in after physio school. And Nick and I are best friends, and families get together and all that stuff. So Nick's competed a number of times, and he was saying just what you did, where the energy was like pretty cutthroat. I think is something like the word that he used, very very much bravado and like standoffish and all of that. And I can't remember whether he told me that before or after my first powerlifting competition. But going into my first meet, I was, I think, understandably a little bit nervous. First, first time out there. We had the athletes meeting at 7 a.m. on a Saturday at some box gym in Scarborough, the east end of Toronto. And I'm there looking around at these big, strong guys and gals who look like they could eat me if they wanted to. And I'm there with my now wife. At the time, she was my girlfriend. She's got her denim blouse and a flower in her hair, and she looks at me like I would never be in this situation if it wasn't for you. I'm like, that's exactly right. Um, and then was just totally blown away by how supportive and friendly everybody was, from the meet directors to the other competitors, like people that I'm in direct competition with, which, as I say this now, as a longer term competitor and a coach, I can say it like, yeah, everyone's out there doing the thing. And if you're in there doing the thing too, people are
Yeah,
hyped for you. But for
yeah,
the first go around, I was mind blown that like
hmm
people like, hey, you don't know how to do that? Let me show you over here. And I was like, this is
yeah, yeah, yeah,
made me want to come back ASAP. You know what I mean?
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's a real.
go
It's
ahead.
sorry. It's a really friendly, approachable sport. Thankfully I've helped a lot of guys get to the like platform for the first time, and it's something like I don't generally encourage anybody to be like you should do a bodybuilding competition unless they want it. Like then I'm like fuck yeah, let's go. But like it's something your heart really has to be in. But I think powerlifting, like I just encourage anyone that like enjoys training and wants to get stronger. I'm like you should sign up for me. Like do your best and at least 6 months or like really do it. Don't just rock up on the day, but earn your spot on that platform and do the work for 6+ months. But yeah, it's really, really friendly, really approachable sport. Onto the yeah, tell me then about into physio. How did you get into that, and how long now have you been out of school and doing it? And yeah.
So physio ended up being on the radar because in high school, and this is, mid football, this is as I'm starting to become more confident, start to, make more friends and sort of bloom, to use dramatic language, as one does in one's teenage years. Um, I wanted to go into some sort of field, either in medicine, something that had to do with science and or healthcare. A doctor came to mind for sure. But then I understood how much time it actually took to become a doctor, and I was like, I don't know that my heart's in it enough to go through 7 years minimum of post grad education. So then I started looking around at other alternatives. Physiotherapy was one, chiropractic was another, and teaching. I had a few really incredible and impactful teachers in high school who I'm still on good terms with now. And because of their impact, of like, there's probably like four or five of them, which in the grand scheme isn't very many, but it's just kind of cool to think about the impact that you can have on people and what that might mean for you, or kind of the ripple effects that you or I might have on somebody that just change the trajectory of their lives, which I'm venturing a guess here, but I'd imagine that's part of what's at the core of your mission as a coach, which, I mean, let me know. We'll talk more about it as we go, but am I right to assume that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. So between those three things, I started to mull them over. I volunteered at a couple of physio clinics, and then I decided, you know what? Physiotherapy is going to be the route that I go. So I did my undergrad in kinesiology, which was a broad base. You can go into different fields. If I had a change of heart and wanted to be a doctor, I could do the pre-med route that way afterwards too. But did the undergrad in kin and then applied for physiotherapy. Most of the people in the kinesiology program at university are trying to get into a physiotherapy program, and they're quite competitive. So, excuse me, I didn't get in the first time. I got in zero places because my GPA was just low enough where it wasn't competitive, or it may not have even met the standards for some of the schools. So that was cool. Gave me a year, and I went to go work at a physiotherapy clinic as my title was an active care specialist. Really, I was kind of like a kinesiologist. There was a physio who assessed people, and then based on the plan of care, people would come in, and I'd be one of the people who would run them through their workouts or their plan of care, which was great because it meant I got to earn some money and save up after being in school for 4 years. And then also got a lot of on the job experience, which was going to be helpful down the road. So I did that, let my GPA get better, and then reapplied and got into physio school, which is a master's program. So 2 years for me at Queen's University. And the program was solid. Uh, Again, it's interesting how you might go into a phase of your life or a program with one expectation and then completely change direction later on. Because for me, learning about assessment techniques, and maybe you have this idea, but I had the notion of a physiotherapist being somebody who has like magic hands. And you're broken, you come see me, I'm going to fix you. So I wanted to be the best damn manual therapist that I could possibly be. And uh, I forget exactly when it changed, but out of school, you mentioned Chad Wesley Smith, Brandon Lilly. These are people that I definitely watched and consumed a whole bunch of stuff from as well. And then also, you may have seen it, but Dr. Quinn Hennick is a physical therapist in the States, worked with Chad as part of Juggernaut Training Systems, and he was the co-founder of a company called Clinical Athlete. So it's a continuing education organization that's meant to help clinicians learn how to be better at helping athletes of all kinds. But at the time, I was really interested in barbell athletes because again, I'm training for bodybuilding. Powerlifting becomes the rebound girlfriend, so I'm like starting to get into this whole world. And Quinn, working with Chad, I'm like, this guy must know some stuff, and he certainly does. Did and does. He's a friend and a colleague now. So hearing what he had to say as far as you 3 sets of 10 with a yellow band ain't gonna cut it. You got somebody who squats 700, or somebody who who deadlifts 700, for sure their glutes aren't weak, but if they have knee pain, it was seeing this gap between the conventional wisdom, what we were taught in school of like, this is the diagnosis and this is how you have to fix it, versus in vivo, like in these real people, like that doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. So that gap is really what drew me in because I was interested for myself personally, as I kept training, trying to get stronger, aches and pains cropped up, but I also knew I wanted to help other lifters especially. So I started working with Quinn. Actually, I hired him to help me with my own rehab for a hamstring strain that I had years ago, and then that really solidified for me. Whoa, I can work with people entirely online. Because just for context, this would have been 2016, so very far pre-COVID, where it was still kind of cutting edge and like, how does this even work? Versus now, it's just everyone's doing it. Uh, but that solidified for me that there was fulfillment to be had working with lifters because everyone gets into it for their own reasons. And if you can help somebody stay in the gym, stay under the barbell, and become stronger and accomplish their goals in the face of pain, that felt pretty damn good. And then I started to see other tools for doing that more effectively. And then the rabbit hole kind of continued from there. So that's how I ended up in physio. I'm hoping you haven't had too many injuries in your career path, whether it's fighting or bodybuilding or training, but inevitably things kind of crop up. So how's it been for you?
Thankfully, the worst injuries I've sustained have been outside of the gym, which I'm grateful for because I've ruptured both of my patella tendons over the past. I guess it's 6 years now. So 2019, I did my first one, and then 11 months, like a cruel 11 months later, I did my other one in 2020. So those have been by far the worst injuries I've actually had to like overcome and like rehab from rehab in the gym. In the gym itself, not a full rupture, but I've torn my pec a bunch of times and like put out my SI joint to my hips and like just I've got a lot of I had over at different stages I've developed a lot of like chronic joint pain like tricep tendonitis, patella tendonitis, all kinds of stuff like that. But thankfully, like no serious injuries in the gym. Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
That's huge, man. But 11 months after the first patellar rupture, man, hats off to you for
It,
managing that. That probably wasn't great.
It was cruel now. Well, the first one happened like 6 months after I moved to Canada. And I was living on my own in a basement apartment, and like I didn't have much income prior to that time either. And it was just like I was like actually scared. Like I was like daunted. I didn't know how my leg was ever going to recover, like how I would get through this. I was really upset and really scared and just like overwhelmed and just in this crazy state. Like I was just at home, like sweating, pissing into a shaker cup, going to the kitchen, hobbling into the kitchen, having like a protein shake or whatever, a snack, and just getting back in bed. And it's like surviving. It was I was like in Canada, base. I don't want to say basically on my own, and like people like I did have like a handful of people did help me out and stuff like that. And I am grateful for that, but when it came to it, I was like pretty much on my own. And then yeah, 11 months later, I did the next one, but I was like much more calm and much more like, wow, okay, like this happened again, but okay, I know what I'm dealing with now, and I know I can overcome it. And it was a blessing in disguise overall because that's what really pushed me fully into online coaching. Yeah,
That did that event there.
yeah, yeah. The second one especially. So
Amazing.
yeah, yeah.
To toss that to you, how did that unfold as you went fully into online coaching? Sounds like, forgive me if you said it before, did you where you had you been dabbling in it or doing it to some extent and then decided to go all the way in? And then how did that go? Because, with any sort of business venture, but especially I think with online coaching, not usually easy days in the first life stage of the business, right?
Yeah, I've been kind of doing it again back to the I've been doing it like a long time on a certain level. So like way back, I think it was 2014, 2015 or so. I was actually met up with a guy in my hometown, and I was just buying some powerlifting equipment from him, like squat briefs. And he was like, it was like 40 euro, $50 or something, $50 I was paying him. And he was like, you know what? Like we were just talking. He was like, why don't you like you could write me a diet and I'll like you can just have the briefs and like we can just exchange like and I was like, yeah, okay, I'll write you a diet, man. And like he won't mind me saying this if he listens to it. Like he's kind of like maybe he might mind. He's like mildly autistic, so like he did the fucking diet like 100%. So, and he got like great results, and he like really just fucking nailed it. Like he got full abs, like ripped. He went from like typical powerlifter look to like proper in shape and everything. So and then he was actually a personal trainer himself, so he started sending me clients that he would train, and I would do their nutrition. And it was pennies at the time, and it was just like small scale, like email me your photos, I email me your diet, blah blah, blah. Just like really basic check in, all a bit scattered and stuff. But that was probably 10. That's like 10 years ago now, at least. And I always just had like a handful of like clients, but even honestly back then, like I wasn't really that serious about it because it wasn't my main thing. It was just like something I was kind of doing on the side. And I didn't believe in myself, and maybe I just didn't really believe in the whole potential of the whole industry and stuff like that. It wasn't like, oh my God, if I have 5 clients, imagine if I had 50 and I could scale. And like, I just didn't really have that aggression. I was just like, yeah, like they kind of came my way. I was charging low prices and stuff like that. But and then I always just kind of kept a handful of clients even when I moved from Canada to or from Ireland to Canada. I had like plenty of clients, or maybe 10 or so back in Ireland. um and then once I tore the second patella, I was like, yeah, I was, it was during COVID as well, but we were in that kind of limbo stage waiting for the gyms to open and things like that. And I just knew I wasn't going to be personal training for like at least under 6 months. So I was just like, right, just going to go all in on this online coaching thing. And once I kind of flicked the switch on it, it was like, it was a just that's the way my brain works anyway. But once I like flicked the switch, it was like a definite change. And I just, started like showing up every day and on social media and just like doing my best at it. And obviously it was amateur compared to what it is now 5 years later of doing it every single day. But yeah, that was the kind of segue into going all in on it was the second patellar.
That's that's pretty well, I mean, tell me if you would agree, but I think that objectively your ability to go all the way in and commit to that process and even what you said about it being kind of amateur or small time compared to what it is now where is your full-time gig. I think there's something to be said for anyone who's willing to I've heard someone say to suck until you don't. That was my singing coach actually. Not saying you sucked, but just being able to be okay with wherever things are and then get better and learn over time, whether that's in the gym or in a rehab process or building one's business, because it's a prerequisite to get where you want to go. I mean, I'm a recovering perfectionist, so it'd be awesome if I was automatically excellent at everything that I tried, but I haven't found the secret sauce. So if you figure it out, you got to let me know.
Yeah, just to kind of my take on what you said there, the way I would phrase it would be like imperfect action. That's my kind of philosophy, or that's something I try to make my philosophy anyway. I'm always happy to help people that, for example, want to start online coaching. Like I'll get people messaging me like, "Hey, like, how do I get started? Like, or how do I do this? I want to be an online coach." And I look at their page and they don't have like one single post about fitness. Like, they don't have any, they don't even post on social media. I'm like, you got to start showing up. Like, like take some imperfect action first, and it's the same way that I don't really coach guys. The men that I coach are like, you got to be trying, you know what I mean? Or you got to at least try to like show me that you're somewhat serious. I don't take people on that are just like not really trying or not serious. Yeah, you got to be willing at least to have taken some imperfect action yourself in the past. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm interested on that too because we were talking before we started recording about how, you know, whether it's a call today or just people that you talk to, you come to realize whether they're not ready, they're not a fit, that sort of thing, which is by design. It's the way that I operate too, and it's for everybody's benefit. Because if I start working with somebody that I'm not meant to work with, they don't see eye to eye with me or vice versa. It's just not going to end up well. So being able to suss that out is really big. Um, Before we hopped on today, we talked about a few topics, and one of them being that strength is not just for yourself, but it's for service to people around you. I could be leading and I could be off, and tell me if I am, but I would imagine that the people that you work with, as you say, they got to be trying because you push them, you challenge them, because I would guess that you see potential in them that hasn't been realized, and that when that potential becomes realized, it's not just a benefit for that person, probably for people, everybody in their orbit. Am I totally out to lunch, or is that something that you'd agree on?
No, 100%. Yeah, 100%. Like for me, it almost feels like a spiritual pursuit, which seems kind of at odds with maybe the energy I put out and like the kind of raw, maybe the way I go about things. But like for me, the way I always frame it in my own head anyway, it probably sounds cheesy or maybe it's hard to even relate to, but it's like it's my way of putting like like a drop of love in the or a drop in the ocean of love. Like, there's like a huge ocean of like love, potential, fulfillment, happiness out there in the world. And I just like by helping men realize their potential, like my vehicle to do that, my vehicle to help men is because it's what I'm good at, it's what I know, is like get in shape, build muscle, you know, do the work, become the man you want to be, look in the mirror and be proud of what you see in the mirror. And yeah, that comes with the surface level results are like the abs and the biceps and the strength that you're lifted in the gym. But there's something really, 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 really powerful about quite literally like getting stronger, like actually being a stronger person than you were yesterday. It's not just a metaphor, it's real. And likewise getting in shape. You can't get in shape and maintain it and continue to improve without like leveling up as a man and becoming, any idiot can get like lose weight in 6 weeks, but like to really build a physique and maintain it and continue to build it, you really have to level up as a man, your personal standards and everything else like that. And every, there's not a sensible, self-respecting woman on the planet that doesn't want to be around a man that is like that wouldn't prefer to be with a man that's like has his shit dialed in and is like doing the right thing. And men can lead their families better, lead their um wives better if that's the dynamic they look for. And yeah, that's kind of that's my way of going about things. And when I'm not maybe feeling so good, or if I'm kind of getting a bit disillusioned with what I do, or I'm in the challenged by what I do, I always kind of come back to like, no, I'm on a meaningful mission here, and I know firsthand the massive impact I've had on so many different men over the years. So that's what kind of keeps me going, keeps me driving. Yeah.
Love that, man. Uh, to add fuel to the fire, what I found in the gym, like I shared, was that this a growing confidence as I saw myself get stronger, as I saw my body change, and then through the remaining, seasons of life up to this present point, continuing to train in my undergrad, training for bodybuilding for the time that I did, transitioning to powerlifting. The gym remained a constant. And just the very nature of resistance training and pushing yourself to achieve whatever goal, whether it's weight loss, weight gain, trying to hit PRs, get on stage, you have to force your body out of where it's comfortable, which means you have to take on these challenges through the weights, through the nutrition. And I fully agree with you that I don't believe you can do that successfully and not level up or reshape yourself mentally, emotionally, which obviously has impact on your relationships, on the kinds of jobs that you can do and how well you can do them. And I when I married my wife, I decided to get my wedding band from Rogue Fitness, of all the places, because I wanted a nice knurled stainless steel band because of all the time that I spent under the barbell. But because, and that was like, it's a thing that time and again challenged me and shaped me. The bar doesn't give a shit what kind of day you had. 225 is always 225. You had a great day, great. Come lift me, earn this. You had a shit day, tough. Come lift this and earn it. Uh, it forces you to come face to face with failure and then decide what you're going to do in response to that. And just the nature of falling short on the number of reps or fully failing a lift. I'm like, all right, that sucked. I wish I could have gotten that, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. But I'll come back. I'm going to get that again at some point, and I'll put in the work to get there. And I really think, Pat, like that laid the foundation that I needed to then be receptive. This would have been 2019, let's say, 2018, 2019. Are you familiar with Jocko Willink?
Yeah.
So, big Jocko fan. And I became aware of Jocko around that time. So, I listened to Extreme Ownership. My wife and I had been married for a year. So, we're figuring out newlywed, life. And I had a lot of growing to do, is the honest truth. So, hearing Jocko's book and what he had to say in it, that was a challenge. And it was easier for me to step up to that challenge, not easy for me to execute. It demanded me to become better and become more. But I was willing to hear it and I was willing to be pushed because that was the standard that I set for myself in the gym time and again. And that all of these events compounding over years has made me a better husband, a better father, a better man, a better coach, a better physio. Excuse me. And then, we may talk about it here, but literally also helped to save my life a couple of years ago. And so I bring that fire these days more than I ever have, where I agree. Me pushing people, me challenging them, calling them out on their bullshit, uh, comes from a place of love. And I love I love the definition of love that comes from Thomas Aquinas, which is desiring the good of another as other. And the good of the people that we work with requires them to change the stories that they tell themselves, requires them to stop the old habits that they've kept up to this point and adopt new ones. Because if those habits were serving them, they wouldn't have any reason to talk to us about the things that aren't working. And it's not always sexy, it's not always fun, but it sounds like we both come at it from a place of great duty and like uh, a high calling. That would you agree with that?
Definitely. I think that's the only way you really have any meaningful longevity in it, or longevity with meaning anyway. To Yeah, to be in it for the right reasons and continuously walking your own path and having experienced that growth as well. And yeah, there's also a certain level of you need to be more you need to be confident to tell people what you feel they need to hear as well. And yeah, you need to be able to lead from the front and walk your own path as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I heard just on that. I heard Eli Wild talk about how you can't teach what you don't know and you can't lead where you won't go.
Yeah, yeah,
And you talk
absolutely.
about leading from the front. I mean, that's what I've found all through my life and why I continue to have to and to choose to push myself to be better, to learn from people who are better in whatever field from me. Because, I mean, how can I sit here and tell somebody, you got to get uncomfortable and you got to do this and that if I'm not actively doing it or haven't been there already? You know what I mean?
100%, 100%. Well, if you don't mind, Jared, you said like that. uh, your mindset or the mindset that you've learned from lifting and lifting itself has kind of helped literally save your life, as you said. If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about that and your health challenges and struggles. I've only seen really the highlights or the lowlights on social media. I don't really, and I kind of intentionally didn't dive too much deeper. I wanted to just hear from you. So yeah, tell us about your challenges and when they started and how they started. And
Yeah, man. So it goes back to January 1st of 2023. My family and I were at my parents' house for New Year's Day, had a lovely visit, came back, and I started feeling a little bit sick. I didn't think too much of it. It's cold and flu season. My wife and daughters had it. Didn't I shrugged it off. A week later, they were better, but I was getting worse. And then over the next 3 weeks, I started to experience things that I never had in my life to that point. I'd never had insomnia, but I had it then. And that was a really weird experience. My cold and flu seasons or symptoms intensified. Um, I had this really intense pressure behind my eyes and in my sinus areas. So I went to the doctor and got checked out. We figured it's a sinus infection because it kind of fit the bill at that point. Got some antibiotics, got a nasal spray, went back home. Wasn't touching it. Things were actively getting worse at this point. And my lymph nodes in my neck and my shoulders started to swell like they've never swollen before or since, where it felt like running my fingers along a little, those topographic maps where you feel the mountain ranges and stuff. It felt like that. No, it felt like that on my neck. And insomnia got worse. At one point, I looked at my wife. I'm like, wait, I got to get checked out. So we went to a small hospital near where we live. Uh, they get diagnosed me as having mononucleosis, which was weird because I always thought of mono as the kissing disease.
mm,
I'd never had it. My wife never had it. We've been married for however long at that point. But okay. So they sent me back home, gave me a sleeping medication. 3 days later, though, I won't forget this day. I was up again with the insomnia, and my wife looks at me and she goes, "You're yellow." And we both think, "Oh, fuck." Because we both know that my liver's failing, but we don't know why. And so we got to get out to the bigger hospital. Um, call my mom. She drives from over an hour away to come stay with our kids, so Ashley can take me to the ER. And we get to the parking lot, and at this point, I've been a powerlifter for call it 9 years, right? Um, and getting out of the van and walking into the entrance of the ER was probably like, I don't know, 20, 20, 30 feet. That was a monumental effort where to the point where I didn't know if I was going to make it. So we get in, talking to the nurse. She takes my blood pressure and my heart rate. My heart rate's like nearly 200 beats per minute. Like it's nearly maxed out just from standing and walking. Um, Blood pressure spiked. Talk to the nurse, the other nurse who's registering me, and I'm like, I'm probably going to pass out, and I just about do. They admit me, and then begins this 6 day mad dash to figure out what the fuck is going on. My wife has no idea, but she's there with me. She's now trying to figure out how long does she stay? Who can she call to take care of our kids? She is seeing me in this hospital bed with an oxygen tube up my nose, and she's used to having her big, strong husband. I'm 6 feet. I weighed about 194 pounds at the time. You know, do all the things that a big, strong husband's supposed to do. And now, over the span of these 6 days, I lose the ability to get up on my own power out of the bed to go to the bathroom. I have to. I'm requiring other people to help me get up because I'm so disoriented. I start being delirious. I'm coughing up blood at this point as well because I had hemorrhages in my throat from what we eventually found out is this rare disease called HLH. It stands for hemophagocytic lymphohistiocytosis. It was explained to me as an autoimmune disease. I later found out it's not a true autoimmune disease, but it's what's called a hyperinflammatory syndrome, where basically your immune system gets all the way ramped up, starts attacking healthy cells, especially red blood cells, and it leads to multi-organ failure. Depending on the stats that you read, the mortality rate for adults with the kind that I had at best is around 50%, can be up to 75%. So, best case scenario, I had a coin flips chance of getting back home. And uh, eh, God bless my wife and my parents because they they dropped everything and just came running. My dad runs his own business. He came running along with my mom, and they switched off. My parents and my wife, just whoever was on shift with me at the hospital. Friends, family came to watch our kids. Um, Absolute godsends. And at the end of these 6 days, I was admitted to the ICU and put on life support because with HLH, the kind that I had was caused by the mononucleosis infection, which to this day we still don't know where I picked it up from. But you can get an infection from that particular virus, and every now and then you get just a really unlucky hand. I had no genetic factors. We did all the testing for it. My hematologist, who's super well versed and like can consults with other experts in the field, told me multiple times like you just had a really unlucky hand. And um, again, this is a disease that kills most people who have it, even with the right treatment, even with treatment administered quickly. And treatment is chemo, it's corticosteroids, it's monoclonal antibodies, it's all the other medications that you need to fight off the infections that you inevitably get from staying in the hospital for so long. So, I mean, it's an uphill battle to say the least. And uh, yeah, placed on life support. And a couple weeks, the first couple weeks were hairy, man. Um, I couldn't get the full dose of the chemo that I needed because my body was just so ravaged by the HLH that my doctors and my nurses and the pharmacists had to take my blood and consult pretty well hour by hour like what I could actually handle. Otherwise, the treatment would be too much for me. And I was placed under heavy sedation, so I was essentially in a coma. I was unconscious for most of this. Uh, I had a ventilator breathing for me down my throat, and eventually I had to do a trach and punch it through my throat because I needed it for so long. On dialysis, and all just this tailspin, it's just going down no matter what they tried. To the point where my parents were on duty, as I was told afterwards, and the hematologist was there, and she had given the last treatment, and it wasn't working. Like vitals are still they're still plummeting. And she looks at my parents and she says, his body's gonna do what it's gonna do. And she walks off. And the charge nurse who overhears this, she comes up and looks at my parents and says, it's really important you understand what she just said. There's nothing else we can do for him. And like they were prepping talks for palliative and just saying goodbye. Um, Faith plays a big role in my family's life, uh, you know, my extended family and mine. And there was a lot of prayer being offered up at this point, both by our family and friends of friends of friends and people who just heard about the story and people that I've never met and probably won't ever meet. Um, and that week where they were prepping to say goodbye to me, somehow I come out of the tailspin. I don't get better right away, but I stop getting worse. And that really was our family's miracle because then it allowed my team to start to give me a little bit more of the treatments and to start to ease me off of some of the dialysis and the other life support systems. And after being on them for 5 weeks and losing about 50 pounds, or excuse me, 40 pounds, because I couldn't eat. They could give me a little bit of nutrition, but I couldn't take much because I was just so ill and very, quite literally on death's door for a chunk at that time. So I wake up essentially skin and bones. I'm weighing 150 pounds. My left arm is blackened because an IV malfunctioned and medicine that should have gone throughout my body stayed here and killed off that skin. Literally strapped to the bed. because the some of the medications made me paranoid, and I pulled out tubes and stuff. And I feel like I wake up in somebody else's body. I can't speak because I got a trach in my throat. Um, and I just want to be at home with my wife and my kids. So it was this process as I came out of sedation and started to understand what all was going on. Part of the blessing of being a physio is I understood what was going on. It was also part of the curse because I understood just how bad this was. And it was confirmed time and again once the restraints came off. I couldn't get out of bed to go to the bathroom to save my life, quite literally, where I needed to piss and I had a catheter first. When I needed to take a shit, there's a bedpan underneath me as I lay in the bed. I can't talk effectively. I can't even write effectively because my hand's shaking with a tremor. And it's an experience I hope nobody has to go through. Um, but if you want to understand what helplessness truly feels like, that's one way to understand it. And yeah, that was rock bottom. But the other decision that came along with it was that I wasn't dead. I had every reason to be, and a high chance that I should have been, but I wasn't. And even if I was breathing with a little extra help, I was still breathing, which meant that I was damn well going to fight to get back home, no matter how fucking long it took. And fight I did, and it was a slow go. Took about 3.5 months in the hospital in total before I went back home. And when I went back home, I was not well. I was still bedbound, um, still nauseous, throwing up from the chemo and all of that. But uh, I got to go home, and I got to continue to work and to get better. Not a linear process. I mean, we both know that from training ourselves and our clients, but especially not here with a medical crisis like that. Once I could actually keep food down, and I had to learn how to speak and swallow again, which was really trippy. It makes sense. You don't eat or drink for 5 weeks, you atrophy those muscles in your throat, um, and you can train them just like any other muscles. But man, Pat, when I tell you that I wanted nothing more in the world than 1 cup of ginger ale, I would have killed. I would have killed several people for that cup of ginger ale. Um, but the process continued, and you know, standing up and sitting down from my bedside turned into getting back to my gym, just in the basement here, and doing some goblet squats, and then eventually touching a barbell. And very slowly, that rehab process turned back into training, which is where the philosophy from my physio career of treating training and rehab as just the spectrum, where they're all connected, really shone, because we went from like as rehab can get, back to like rehabby training, back to training, and then it got to the point where I could actually make plans to get back on a powerlifting platform. And I was blessed enough to compete twice, just over a year after getting out of the hospital, and both times deadlifted a lifetime PR and hit a dots PR. But the best PR was just being able to do that in front of my wife and my daughters who were cheering from the front row. So it's been a hell of a ride.
That's amazing, man. That's crazy. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you. That's intense. I have so many questions. I literally do have so many questions. And if it's all right with you, Jared, we've been chatting for nearly an hour. I feel like could we do like I mean this with all politeness. I kind of want to ask like lots of questions and just get like the the snapshot answer if we can. Yeah, yeah.
Love it.
The this is more of a I guess like it's a personal interest question from me. I'm just curious, like what was it like being so close to death? Like, did you see the white light? Did you have any spiritual experience, physical experience? Were you just like on so much drugs you don't know what was that like that time of
It was the drugs for me. I vividly recall some really trippy psychedelic feeling type dreams, which I have to. imagine was my brain's way of trying to process what was going on. But I dreamt that I was kidnapped and put in the back of a pickup truck and strapped down to go to this sort of psychedelic circus and be a one of the staples at the circus. I dreamt that I was a whale in a family of whales, and then it was piecing together from my wife, from my medical team, from my parents, where I was, and I could understand that when I had the dream of being a whale, it was because I was playing around with the settings of my hospital bed, incline, decline, that sort of thing, and the drugs do weird things. The doctors told us
Yeah.
later. It makes people paranoid. It makes them really, sort of docile. It can do all sorts of stuff. So it was just like on a massive trip.
The word that's coming to mind is like cool, but yeah, maybe,
I mean,
yeah.
it was very interesting.
Yeah.
There are probably
Okay.
probably less lethal ways to experience that same
Yeah.
sort of.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And what's been the biggest like unexpected reward from the whole experience?
How my family was brought closer because of it. My daughters,
Nice.
my wife saw everything, and I can never thank that woman enough. God bless her. Um, like she she literally wiped the shit off my ass when I couldn't do it myself, and like incredible. So just gratitude and to see what love looks like. We talked about love before, and it can take different forms. That is absolutely self-sacrificial love. And then my daughters saw me when it was safe to see me when I would come off of life support. So they saw me at rock bottom. I didn't look anything like I looked when I left the house in January. I don't look like didn't look like what I look like now. And they saw the whole process. There was a lot of trauma, and I don't use that word lightly. Like there was absolutely trauma for me, for them, and we talked through it, worked through it. I worked with my counselor to get through that myself, and I really believe my wife does too that it brought us closer together. Um, there's trust. I think you have to have trust if you're going through that, and you know the inner circle sees all the ugly shit. So that's probably the biggest unexpected plus.
Nice. Nice. Um, right, and talk to me then about your actually, you said like you had to fight and you were going to fight every day to get back. I've heard that. I've heard that so many times, and I've heard it with like cancer patients, and I've heard like, people say like this 6-year-old has fought so hard. And how would you describe like how in what sense is it a fight? What is it a mental switch? How is it? How would you say it's a fight?
Yeah, definitely.
As opposed just to be devil's advocate, like as opposed to just being passive and lying there and letting that medication do its thing. Like how would you kind of say it was a fight?
Yeah, I'd say it has three elements to it, and maybe the third doesn't apply to everybody. But the first is the physical, and you're right that there's going to be some degree of recovery, hopefully, that the medications and the treatments have on their own. But that still doesn't remedy the fact that if you're in a situation like I was, where you are so weak that you can't walk, I had to learn how to stand and walk truly ground zero again. There's no way around that. Like no medication yet is going to grow back the muscle and like give you back your coordination. So like there's the true, blood, sweat, tears requirement. And I had all three, considering I had so many blood draws and cried a whole lot in the hospital. So there's that, the physical work that's required to build up all of your body. I had to chew ice chips and like learn how to swallow and all that stuff. There's the mental game of you are so far, like you're through the floor compared to where you were before. And I can't speak to everybody else, but this is just how it is for me. So far from where I was, competitive powerlifter, always, well, not always, but for most of my life, feeling confident in my body. I could trust it. It did what I wanted it to do. Uh, and now I could not trust it. It was doing all sorts of weird stuff that I couldn't expect and didn't want it to do. And I had to learn how to let go of the old identity in the sense that I had to come to terms with the fact that I wasn't who I was before this all happened. And if I held on to that identity too tightly, it would steal my energy instead of allowing me to put that energy and focus where it truly had to be, which was just on the work that had to get done so that I could recover and get back home. and make sure that my wife still had her husband, make sure my daughter still had their father. Um, and I'm by nature, recovering type A personality, which I do believe has its benefits, but it's also gotten me into trouble. It means that I'm really good at working. I will fucking work myself into the ground. My mentor told me your problem will not be working. It will be in recovery and letting yourself rest. Because there were days, man, when the chemo was too strong, or I spiked a massive fever, or I had wounds, and like wound was like bleeding and needed to be bandaged and stuff, where like that just wasn't a day where I could put in a whole lot of work. And I had to learn to be okay with that, and that it's like charging your phone. You got to plug it into the wall every so often, otherwise you end up with a useless brick. But you get the you get the pattern, or you get enough juice in the phone, you let it charge for as long as it needs to. You can use it for some good things. Um, so layers to that mental game. And then spiritual is that third element for me. Like I said, faith plays a big role for me. And there's the there was a whole lot of grieving and questioning, you know, God, why me? It sounds cliche, but that's exactly what I was asking and questioning. It's why did this happen to me? Why did it have to go down like this? A lot of anger, a lot of resentment, and a lot of, again, sadness and fear. I didn't know what was gonna come next. How can this be possibly used for, some measure of good? And I had to learn to trust more. Um, Trust that I am here and I'm not dead, which means that I have agency in terms of what I'm going to choose to do. Doesn't mean I can choose everything or choose to change everything, um, but I can control the things that are controllable by me, which was going to be what work I do. Do I let myself rest? Do I, um, strengthen myself with the people around me? Because I can't do this on my own fully. A big part of the reason why I could get through the shitty days, and there were lots of shitty days, is because my wife and my family were around, and you know, there were many people who were super generous, and I'm eternally grateful for them. There's a core contingent of folks who just like were absolute rock stars, and I'll never be able to thank them enough. So that's what I'd say there, and it might be different for other people, but that's how it was for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And where are you now then, Jared? You said like it was like 50-50. Like I don't actually I'm speaking from a complete place of ignorance here. So are you cured, or is it like can you just go back? Like what where are you still walking that line, or what?
Yeah, thank God I'm free and clear, and I still get followed by my doctors, my hematologists, and a few other specialists. So it is cured at this point. There is a
Right.
chance of recurrence. I don't have a genetic factor for it again, but based on the case studies that we have, and granted, HLH is rare. I think it's something like one in every 500,000 people get it as adults. Um, but there's about a 20 to 30% chance that it could come back. But the doctor who told me that immediately followed it by saying, put the other way around, 70 to 80% chance it doesn't happen again, which he'd take those
Right.
odds and so will I. Um, it does mean that we've got a couple irons in the fire where another treatment for HLH is a bone marrow transplant if needed. I didn't have to have it, thank God again, through up to this point. But we started doing some testing for matches, so if ever that was needed, it's a little faster to deploy. And then we also have some things to look out for. Like if I get sick, my body gets a little more enthusiastically sick, as we found out over the last couple of years. But we also know the thresholds where we can start to say that's not typical. We should go get checked out and that sort of thing. So beyond that, man, it's about the usual tenets of health. I got to make sure that I take care of myself, certainly through training, nutrition, sleep, and that's one thing that, or sorry, one thing that I've had to learn how to do better on this side of that experience as a business owner and as a coach is when to stop. Because again, I can work myself into the ground, and I do a lot of hard work, but I have to put up boundaries, not just for my sake either, but for the sake of my family and the people that I serve. So it's that's been an interesting thing to get used to.
Yeah, yeah. God, God taught you a lesson there too, and it's in a very harsh lesson, but yeah, it's giving you the lesson that you need maybe as well, just on pulling back, spending time with family, and listening, honoring your energy and stuff as well.
I'd agree.
Talk to me then, just big picture, like about your rehab and specifically in the gym and stuff like that. And I suppose just more practically, like how, what do you feel like is, did you make mistakes in your own rehab? And like, what do you think the biggest mistakes guys make? And are you guilty of those, maybe being too eager and ambitious coming back? Or yeah, talk me through that, walking
Yeah.
that line.
Yeah. I got a lot of lessons from actually before the hospital because I made a ton of mistakes. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is trying to do it themselves. And that's
Yeah.
especially true if you're a clinician or a coach. And I'm not saying you can't do it. I mean, you certainly can. People do it. And if that's what you, whoever is listening, chooses to do, then great. But you just got to know that it's always different when it's you. Because going back to Quinn and Chad Wesley Smith, I strained my hamstring just on a deadlift in 2015, fresh out of PT school. Wasn't even a super heavy deadlift. It was sumo, so that's what I get for cheating. But strained the hamstring, and it ended up being a really, really persistent bugger of an injury, as tendon injuries tend to be. But I tried to rehab that myself for 2 years. And this is around the time that I worked with my first coach. He was great, no fault to him. But we tried to figure it out and it would get better and then it would flare up. We have to pull back, it would get better, and we ramp it up and it flares up again. So I lost effectively a good chunk of time, the better part of those 2 years, trying to figure it out myself. And when I finally decided to make the investment and to put my trust in somebody and to not believe the bullshit narrative in my head that was saying, "Hey, you're a physiotherapist. You should be able to figure this out. Otherwise, what was the point of going to school? This is what you help people with. Unless you can do it for yourself, you can't help others." That's bullshit for one. It's rooted in ego and it seems convincing on the surface, but anybody who is great at anything has coaches and mentors in their life, including including when they themselves are excellent. You know, we could look at anybody who competes in bodybuilding or powerlifting or whatever. They've got their coaches and they've got their people in their corner because it's just always different when it's you. So that's probably one of the biggest mistakes that I made and I still pay the consequence for because that hamstring injury is still something I have to deal with and I'm working through right now. So it's part of why I want to save people from the headaches and the lost time that I'll never get back. But at least I can steer people away from, that same sort of pitfall. And thankfully I made that mistake before the stakes were higher when I was recovering after the hospital. And I was able to lean on that. I had one of my assistant coaches who worked for me at the time step in as my coach to handle my rehab. He was a physical therapist. He had experience with people in the hospital. His name is Dave. Super grateful for him because that just helped me show up and like just do what I had to do, which is exactly what I needed, but was hard to accept as the person who's usually steering the ship for everybody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. It's been a powerful and impactful conversation, Jared. Thanks for your honesty and yeah, sharing your story, man. It's a very very powerful, as I'm sure you're well aware, and I know that there's things we didn't even get to touch on today. So we'll definitely have to run it back or do a part two for sure. I'm curious, man. What's like if you were to just if there's one, it doesn't have to be too profound or anything like that, but one thing, one lesson, one message for anyone that's listening, just in general, in any capacity, one kind of thing you want to put out there.
The one thing, and I've been doing a lot of thinking about this lately, is that you probably, I hope, don't go through a crisis like I went through. Um, but the reality is that the longer that we're all here on this planet, we're going to be faced with adversity and with troubles and challenges. And sometimes through those challenges, the world, your world, can feel like it's coming crashing down, and that you're left with the pieces strewn around you. If you can hear this message, if you've got breath in your lungs, it means that you still have some fight in you if you choose to. And the thing that I had to believe before I ever started doing any work to recover from HLH in the hospital is that I had to believe that I wasn't done yet. And that belief is what precedes any work, which eventually leads to the outcome or the goal that any of us wants to achieve. So my personal belief is that if you are here and if you choose to not give up, that you're not done yet. Whether that's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's relationship wise, whether it's financial, whether it's starting a new career, whether it's other circumstances that you didn't have choice about and that you'd rather change if you could, but you can't. My belief is that if you choose to stand firm and control what you can control, you're not done yet. And what you build from those pieces might be stronger or something you're more proud of than what was there before.
Amen. Amen. Love it. Control the controllable and keep fighting the good fight.
That's it, man.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it. Well, Pat, man, thank you for this conversation and for sharing your insights and your story. Like I told you, I was eager to get it from the horse's mouth, as it were, and I'd love to run it back. So whenever
Yeah.
you decide want to do it, we'll line it up and we'll make it happen.
100% will make it happen. Yeah. And just for anyone that might be coming across this podcast through me that might not know how to connect with you or learn more about you, where can people find you?
Yeah, Instagram is going to be the place where I'm most active. So it's jared.unbreakable. Come hang out. If you got any questions, you want to ask about my story or about training or about rehab or anything that I can help with that sparked, some interest from this conversation, I'm an open book. I'm working on a couple of things. Podcast of my own is something in the future. Also working on beginning to do some public speaking. So it's early yet, but you may be hearing me and seeing me in a few different places. But yeah, man,
Well,
that's me.
look forward to it, man. Thanks so much. Yeah, we'll wrap it up there.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pat.